everybody, welcome back to an episode of the 3 Count Super. I'm the laziest war machine, MJ, and I'm so far behind on these. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump headfirst into NXT. This is from the November 27th edition of NXT, post Survivor Series. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Of course, no surprise, NXT won Survivor Series. Not only did they have a killer War Games, but they also kicked Raw and SmackDown's ass at Survivor Series. And we started off this episode of NXT with Josiah Williams, formerly known as WrestleFlow, started the celebration for the Black and Yellow brand with the entire roster pouring out there, living up with the crowd, basically screaming and shouting, hooping and hollering and saying, yeah, we're the best. Until they were interrupted by the ones that hold all the gold, the Undisputed Era. Basically, the Undisputed Era... Yeah, the Undisputed Era said, yeah, NXT won, all because of us. All us. The rest of you are crap, basically. And then, they belittled the NXT universe. Of course, Ciampa and Keith Lee and Dijakovic and Matt Riddle had enough of... had enough of the Undisputed Era gloating and all that. And Ciampa basically said he's coming back for Goldie. And of course, the other key component of this whole situation, Finn Balor came out and basically set up a match between himself and Ciampa for later on in the night. And then we launched immediately into a tag team championship as the Undisputed Era defended against Dijakovic and Keith Lee. Now, early on in the match, Bobby Fish, who always has a run of bad luck post War Games. He always gets injured either during War Games or after War Games, and this time was no different. He took a nasty looking spill on the outside, and when they came back from commercial, Bobby Fish was not on the ring apron. He was instead escorted to the back and replaced by Roderick Strong. Of course, when it seemed like the Undisputed Era was on the down low, about to lose their championships, Adam Cole came out there, and he was immediately just flung into the NXT crowd with a with a shotgun shoulder tackle from Keith Lee. And both Keith Lee and Dijakovic just stared at what they saw, just like, wow, I can't believe that happened. Because Keith Lee was admiring his work, and Dijakovic was just sitting there like, what the just happened? Of course, that allowed Strong and O'Reilly to retain their championship gold. Next, we had a one-on-one contest between Mansoor and Shane Thorne. Of course, this was a really good back and forth match. However, Mansoor got the victory. Of course, he's still riding high off of his victory at Crown Jewel, even though this is the first time we've seen him since Crown Jewel. Next, Sorry about that. Next, we had one-on-one action between Candice LeRae and, of course, Dakota Kai. Dakota more or less answering for her actions at War Games. And, yeah, Candice LeRae was giving Dakota Kai her comeuppance. It was kicking her ass. Um, was kicking her ass throughout the match, and of course, towards the finish yeah when the chips were down for the captain of Team Kick, she she resorted to some dirty tactics, taking out Candice LeRae with the knee brace that she plucked off of the injured Tegan Knox. And when she tried to put Candice LeRae down for good with a steel chair, Rhea Ripley came in and just, saved the day. And then it'd be announced that the next week it would be Dakota Kai taking on Rhea Ripley. Next, we had NXT Cruiserweight Champion Lio Rush taking on Akira Tozawa. Just for the Cruiserweight Championship. And this was a fantastic match. Um, yeah, both these guys just they went to town full speed ahead, full throttle, kicking the crap out of each other. However, the champ of the hour hit the final hour to keep his championship in tow. Of course, Lio Rush still isn't done with Angel Garza, especially just that nasty, nasty shot. Uh, just that nasty shot on the War Games pre-show, if I can get my words together. Next, we had the Nightmare herself, Rhea Ripley, confronting Shayna Baszler after. Wait, that's weirded. It's weirded. That's worded weirded. My brain is tired. Shut up. Anyway, yeah, Shayna Baszler defeated. No, damn it, Shayna Baszler wasn't in action. They have it worded weird on these result page. Anyway, Xia Li took on Vanessa Bourne and beat her. Kind of no surprise. Shayna Baszler then took down Xia Li with the help of her horsewomen, and of course, Rhea Ripley saved the day yet again. And basically staking her claim for Rhea Ripley's championship. And then in the main event, we had Finn Balor and Tommaso Ciampa kicking the absolute out of each other in a classic match. However, in the end, Finn Balor got the win over Tommaso Ciampa with Bloody Sunday, the 1916 Brainbuster. No longer coup de grace to put people away. It's all about that Brainbuster. And while Adam Cole and Finn Balor were standing over the carcass of Tommaso Ciampa, Balor laid out Adam Cole with a deafening Pele kick. So yeah, the Prince has no allegiances to anyone as of this moment. Then that takes us to the December 4th edition of NXT. We started the show immediately off with Killian Dane pacing in the ring. Yeah, he was supposed to have a match against Damian Priest, but Priest wasn't clear to compete after that hellacious triple threat at War Games. So Killian Dane got on the mic and just just demanded anyone from the NXT locker room come out there and give him a fight. And of course, that answered the Bruiserweight. Yeah, so once again, these two just proceeded to kick the living and absolute shit out of each other. I'm going to start throwing some obscenities in there so YouTube knows this isn't for kids. Shit, fuck, shit. Anyway, however, in the end, Pete Dunne, sorry, 1001 names were running through my head. Pete Dunne locked in the sleeper as Killian Dane was climbing the top rope. And that backfired for the Bruiserweight as Killian Dane just kind of hit I don't know what you would call it, but he fell backwards and he sandwiched Pete Dunne between himself and the canvas. Literally a rock and a hard place. And he got the victory. An unconscious victory. Next we had the Undisputed Era coming out. And Adam Cole basically demanded answers from Finn Balor. You know, to figure out where does he stand in this whole scenario. Out walks Keith Lee. And of course Kyle O'Reilly starts trying to tear into him. And it was hilarious. Calling him Keith momentarily. It was great. Of course, Keith Lee made it known that he was going to rip one of the belts away from the Undisputed Era. And of course, that led to a kerfuffle between the two parties as the numbers outweighed the Limitless one until Tommaso Ciampa stepped up and helped Lee out. And then the Undisputed Era just tore off into the crowd. And that set up a 6-man tag team match for later on in the night. It was the Undisputed Era, minus Bobby Fish, taking on Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, and Dominik Dijakovic. Next, we had a spot of payback between Xia Li and Shayna Baszler. I mean, things started out hot and heavy for Xia Li as she had the advantage against Shayna Baszler, but in the end, well, she tapped. Yeah, that's pretty much all it was. The Queen of Spades locked in the Kirifuda, and yeah, Xia Li had no choice but to tap out. Because it's one of 3 options. Tap, nap, or snap. Next, we had Forgotten Sons squashing Adrian Alanis and Leo Rush, the top tag team of Evolve. Yeah, no real surprise. Next, it was going to be Dakota Kai taking on Rhea Ripley. However, through a bit of awkwardness, yeah, because Rhea Ripley came out there and said it was very clever what she did, but that's the thing about surprises. Yeah, it was very awkward. Anyway, yeah, Mia Yim came out there and just her and Dakota Kai were having a match, but they wound up brawling to the backstage, and the brawl didn't stop there. They brawled all throughout Full Sail. Meanwhile, Shayna Baszler got her pound of flesh against Rhea Ripley, forcing her to nap to the Kirifuda clutch. And in 2 weeks' time, on my birthday, we're going to get Shayna Baszler taking on Rhea Ripley for the NXT Women's Championship. Next, we had a talent exchange match as the wrestling genius of NXT UK, Cassius Ohno, took on his old nemesis, Matt Riddle. These two put on yet another damn good match, but in the end, Cassius Ohno... sorry about that. Cassius Ohno fell victim to a ripcord knee and a Bro Derek combination from the original Bro. Next, we had a video package for Kushida, basically seeing what he was up to in the past couple of months that he broke his wrist. And he was going to have his return match against Raul Mendoza. Until Raul Mendoza got taken out. I'm talking assassination. See, because he came out, he did his little preening to the crowd. He turned around right as Cameron Grimes hit the cave-in, took this man out of action, turned and looked at Kushida and said, "Kushida, you're facing me now, boy." I had to go back and watch that part like 3 different times. It was crisp. But this was a fantastic match. However, in the end, Kushida hit a roll-up and got the win over Cameron Grimes. Fantastic match. I'm looking forward to what these two are going to do later on down the line. And finally, in the main event, was the aforementioned 6-man tag team match. Of course, the Undisputed Era, minus Bobby Fish, taking on Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, and Dominik Dijakovic. Yeah, things broke down real fast and in a hurry. There was a Tower of Doom setup spot where there was just like, it was a House of Cards effect, as there was doesn't say who was on the turnbuckle, but Finn Balor came out of nowhere, hit the shotgun drop kick on Adam Cole, knocking him into the Tower of Doom spot. And there's this great visual of Finn Balor lining up his shot, and then Keith Lee just kind of pops up out of nowhere. And it's almost like it's almost like footage from National Geographic, just like a random grizzly bear just comes up out of nowhere. Of course, Keith Lee put away Finn Balor with a devastating spirit bomb. Of course, Finn Balor bounced with it, like his back bounced with it. But in the end, Keith Lee got a squeaky clean win over the leader of the Undisputed Era, which prompted William Regal to come out and make a match make a couple of matches, I should say. Because next week on NXT, it will be a triple threat match as Tommaso Ciampa takes on Keith Lee, takes on Finn Balor for the #1 contendership. And on December 18th, my birthday, the winner of that match will challenge Adam Cole for the NXT Championship. Basically, nice little way to close out 2019. So, yeah. And it's a big night, because also on that night, on the AEW front, Chris Jericho is going to defend his AEW Championship against Jungle Boy. So, that's going to be a good night. Alright. Next, we move on to NXT UK from November 28th. We kicked off the show with Piper Niven taking on Jenny, and of course Piper Niven getting the victory. But the big story here is Piper Niven making it clear that she's coming after Kaylee Ray's NXT UK Women's Championship, and of course, Kaylee Ray came out there, and basically these two got into an altercation. And of course, wow, that is a long paragraph. Anyway, Toni Storm came back and basically got her pound of flesh on Kaylee Ray as we end the segment with Toni Storm and Piper Niven having an intense stare down. Next, we had the return of Eddie Dennis as he took on Doris Gordon, or if you know the UK scene, Man Like Doris. And on a side note, Man Like Doris he's incredibly talented. He's really good. Saw him a whole lot in Defiant Wrestling. He was pretty good. There's great footage of him doing a sequence of moves in the ring with a cup of beer, not even spilling one drop. Choice. Of course, Eddie Dennis. Of course, Eddie Dennis put away Man Like Doris. No surprise there. Next, we had Noam Dar defeating Ashton Smith. This match came about because Noam Dar was clowning Ashton Smith, and Ashton Smith tried to clown back, but then he realized, wait a minute, I still don't have a win. And so, shocker, he still doesn't have a win, as Noam Dar beat him. And we closed out the show. With 8-man tag team action as the Imperium Boys. Of course, NXT UK champion Walter, who recently had his championship stolen. Not in the metaphorical sense or not in the storyline sense, like some worthless piece of crap actually busted in his car and stole it, along with some of his gear. Anyway, NXT UK champion Walter, which they call NXT UK champion, not WWE UK champion. Anyway, Walter, Eichner, Bartel, and Alexander Wolf took on them Gallus boys, Mark Coffey, Joe Coffey, Wolfgang, and of course, temporary Gallus boy, Ilya Dragunov. And that just ended a whole lot of brawling, no disqualification. Referee threw it out because he couldn't get control. So yeah, things still broke down quick, fast, and in a hurry between the Gallus and Imperium boys. Next, we move on to the December 5th episode of NXT UK, where we started the show off with Toni Storm with her return match against Killer Kelly. Of course, no surprise, Toni Storm got the win, but she seems to have a little bit of an edge. As she went out to ringside to pick up the mic and tried to say something before Kaylee Ray beat her down, with a sneak attack. Piper Niven tried to make the save, but yeah, Toni Storm wasn't having none of it. So Toni Storm is got a mean streak to her. Next, we had tag team action as The Hunt took on the Outliers. Of course, the Outliers is Riddick Moss and Dory Mack, or Dan Matha. Sorry, every time I mention the name Dan Matha, I laugh because I think about all the weeks of hype, and then he just gets torn apart by Samoa Joe. Anyway, the Hunt defeat the Outliers, whoop-de-doo. Next, we had Jordan Devlin taking on A-Kid in this was a brutal match. Down the stretch, Tyler Bate came out to rally his disciple, I guess. I don't know, it's weird, because they kept calling A-Kid Tyler Bates' disciple on commentary, but only interaction I've gotten between those two is Tyler Bate is a huge fan of A-Kid's work. I mean, I can get behind it. A-Kid's pretty good. There was one point in the match where Jordan Devlin had A-Kid prone on the mat and just locked in a very nasty leg bend in front of Tyler Bate, and it was excruciating because he bent the A-Kid's left leg, and he bent it in such a way that the heel of his left foot was touching his left hip. It was uncomfortable, to say the least. But of course, in the end, The Irish Ace put away a kid with the devil inside. Oh, I love that move. Love the name too. It's fantastic. Next, we had a match to settle the score between three different men, as Joseph Connors took on Travis Banks and Ligero. Now this goes back a couple of weeks when Ligero and Travis Banks were having a rematch to their inconclusive match prior. Joseph Connors got involved and essentially cost Ligero the win, and then proceeded to beat down Travis Banks. Basically, trying to punch his Joseph Connors is trying to punch his ticket for NXT Takeover Blackpool 2. In fact, all three of these guys are trying to punch their ticket, but yeah, in the end, yeah, sorry, my eyes are trying to go into business with themselves. But in the end, Joseph Connors hit the Don't Look Down, the DLD. Love that name, by the way, on Ligero, and yeah, basically staked his claim to a match at Blackpool. And finally, in the main event, we had negotiations between Joe Coffey and Walter to, just kind of squash the beef between the Imperium boys and, the Imperium camp and them Gallus boys. And the final say in this was, well, okay, each side had an argument, or had their own negotiations. If I can get my brain to work, Walter wanted Gallus to put their NXT UK championship titles on the tag team titles on the line, while Joe Coffey just wanted an NXT UK championship match against Walter, who would only agree to those terms if Alexander Wolf and Ilya Dragunov would have a match, an unsanctioned match, I should say, or not an unsanctioned, a no disqualification. There we go. So they settled on it. at Takeover Blackpool 2, Walter will defend against Joe Coffey. Next week on NXT UK, we're going to get Mark Coffey and Wolfgang defending against Eichner and Bartel. And at an undisclosed time in the near future, it will be Dragunov and Wolf who will have a no disqualification match, which, shifting attention to those two, when Walter set out that claim that there needs to be a no disqualification match between those two, Joe Coffey couldn't agree to that because he doesn't speak for Ilya Dragunov. Ilya Dragunov is not, and he kept referring to Gallus as a firm, which I like that. They're a firm of fighters, like a law firm. But of course, Ilya Dragunov came out there and barked at Joe Coffey, "Make the match." So we got that. We're going to get that match. And after Joe Coffey had left the ring, Ilya Dragunov was assaulted by them Imperium boys, and he was put through the table. So this means war for the Mad Russian. And I see a clean sweep for them Gallows boys, especially since the NXT brand is not going to have a takeover for Royal Rumble this year. They're going to have a Worlds Collide event. Basically, it's going to be their version of Survivor Series, where NXT will take on NXT UK. So what I'm figuring is the Imperium boys will take on the Undisputed Era. And maybe it will be a 4-on-4, depending on how healthy Bob Fish is, because he wasn't at last week's NXT. So, who knows how that goes? I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being done with this episode of 3 Count. Because my eyes don't want to work, my brain doesn't want to work, my tongue doesn't want to work. Anyway, that being said, it's plug time. If you miss Rod's face, see, brain's not working. If you miss Rod's opinion, but not his ugly face, he has a podcast. Prime Talk with Rodimus Prime on the Castbox app. Go check it out. That being said, I'm War Machine MJ, and I will see you guys next time.